we come to Scorpio, the eighth sign of the zodiac, which is water. It is fixed because it's in the middle of autumn, of fall, and it's yin, as all the water signs are. So that will be your sub-headline. And the headline on your index card should be Scorpio, Pluto, in brackets, Mars as the old ruler, and the eighth house. As mentioned when I was describing the elements and the qualities, water has a tendency to flow downwards, and fixed water has the tendency to go to where it can stand still, because fixed is the quality of maintaining. So naturally, water stands still when it has reached its deepest point, or when it is blocked or boxed in. But sticking with this analogy of like going to the deepest point and water correlating with our emotions, Scorpio is the archetype of our deepest point of emotions. It's our deepest emotions. And as we know by Cancer, or from Cancer, that emotions thrive for security, Scorpio, 8th house, Pluto, I skipped Mars, Mars is the old ruler, are standing for our deepest sense of emotional security, our deepest emotional sense of safety. So Scorpio, in an emotional point, from an emotional point of view, is very intense. It's emotionally X-raying, penetrating. It wants, not only within oneself, but also within its opposite, or his, her opposite, to X-ray to the deepest level of emotions, the deepest layer of emotions within the other person. And by that, it wants to examine and figure out, X-ray, what's behind, what is the deepest motives on and agendas within myself as a Scorpio, but also with another person. So Scorpio is very deep, very, very deep. And as it longs for emotional safety, and the water trine, I mean like Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, is linked with this Cancer safety, i.e. our childhood, our early family, there's basically a longing, because Cancer makes a square to Libra, and Libra being the archetype of initiation of a diversity of relationships. Within the world of others, we are looking for someone who we are able to go very deep, emotionally deep, with the hope to find emotional safety, to be very deep in the emotions. And as Scorpio within itself is very deep in its emotions, it wants to make sure that it's not going to be emotionally hurt on very deep levels of emotional security or safety when trusting someone else. So in order for them to trust, they will want to X-ray and go very deep with you into your inner parts. I would almost have said abyss, but into the inner deepest motives and agenda. And there are diverse ways for them to figure that out. I called it X-ray or penetrating. And because it's an emotional sign, they sense the things. They basically sense if what you're saying has substance. Keep in mind, everything is deep, so it's about substance, emotional substance. If you're just like a social butterfly, that just does pretty face whenever needed, or if you have like substance, profoundness. So basically all these emphasized words that I'm using now to underline the archetypes of Scorpio, they do apply for Scorpio themselves in their inner deep relationship with themselves, but also in the depth of with another person that is more or less like chosen among the diversity of other people from the Libra 7th house. There's maybe one person where I feel a very intense, Scorpio's intensity, an intense magnetism. I mentioned with Taurus that Venus is magnetism, but as Taurus is the opposite sign of Scorpio, that magnetism buys also into that 8th house dynamic. So there is this intense magnetism, the intensity of wanting to X-ray, to penetrate the other person emotionally, and to test. Scorpio tests, not even purposely. I mean, some might, but it is more of an emotional moment or phase when they feel that there is a threat, Scorpio is threat, to their emotional safety. And that might come out of the blue. The Gemini department or third house department might say, oh, the reason is da-da-da-da-da because she didn't call, those kind of things. But it's just like, there's always like moments where they go into an inner form of compression. And in that time, they're a little bit, or they are in that compressed. Like if I take an orange and squeeze the essence out, they are interested in the very essence, interested not in a mental way, but emotionally way. And that essence, they want to, or they need to test, because Scorpio has a deep fear of violation of their trust. Because what they give is so, I would have said a F word, but I say like freaking deep, it's profound deep. That what they want to give, they want to ensure that the other one is able to deserve it in a certain way. If they are, when they open up their deepest layers of who they really are, I always imagine it's like an elevator, and the elevator goes like in this first ground floor, then like first like deeper level, deeper level, deeper level, deeper level, and as deeper as you go, as darker as gets. Dark is not evil. That's a misunderstanding in our Christian Christian societies. Dark is not evil. You rather have like a nice love-making night, in a kind of dimmed bedroom with a candle instead of like a neon light flooded bedroom, right? So it is about that the womb is dark, the womb is moist. So it is about this really, really going into the depth, into the deep, 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 deep. But within that deep, we find within ourselves, and therefore also in others, that we are not only angels, that we have motives and agendas that do not necessarily match with a Libra pretty social expectation of, oh, you look gorgeous, oh, thank you, I'm so humbled that you say that. The ha 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 ha, the British garden party, oh, you look fabulous. They go deep, right? And therefore, that what society, Capricorn, in their Libra way, square to Libra, defines as right and proper, is what Scorpio wants to go much, much deeper, right? They want to lead you and themselves, because they know that what I call shadow land. And majority of people is very afraid of their shadows. They do everything to avoid it, Virgo. They rather have the pretty mask on, I'm the pretty girl, than admitting that I do have quite some shadowish agendas or fears or archetype of Scorpio, desires. And that goes back to the very deep, deep, deep wisdom, even though wisdom is Sagittarius. But Scorpio is the sign before Sagittarius. So the wisdom that Sag carries and lives is rooted in the deep, deep, deep shadowland of Scorpio, which I will explain when we go to Sagittarius. Like when I was starting to do family constellation work as one of the first or second in California in 2000, I think, lots of my clients were asking me if I would educate them that they could learn it. And my kind of typical me answer was no. And I said, like, why not? And I answered, because you've never been at an S&M party in Berlin in a former Nazi bunker. And they were completely Californians. How could he say that? Oh, he goes to like a bunker party in Berlin, an S&M party? Yes, I do. Because I learn the Shadowland the best way when you go to areas, next archetype, that have taboos. Scorpio loves the taboos. Right? And I must say, if I went to those underground parties in London or Paris or whatever, I met the finest people. Because they're not afraid of their shadow. They're not running away. They have, keep in mind, Scorpio makes a square to Leo. They have integrated that. I'm not sure, did I say integration with Leo? If not, add it to it. Leo's the archetype of integration, like everything comes into my arena. So if I start to go into my shadowland, into my deep, 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 into my deep good and apparent evil, I will see that there's no reason to be afraid if I'm really like Morpheus, not Morpheus from like the Matrix, but the original Morpheus, yeah, who went into the underworld, which is ruled by Pluto, to pick up his wife. Yeah? And he made a deal with Hades and with Pluto, right? But he failed. But anyway, so going into your own underworld is a very deep healing process. That's why deep forms of psychotherapy clearly have to do with Scorpio, because they lead you to the deeper agendas. I'm not saying that all of them are like, performed very well, but if someone starts to examine one's deeper agendas, why do I do that? A typical Scorpio question is why? Why? Whereas a typical Virgo question is how? How shall I do that? What's step number one? What's step number two? The deep going into the deep layers makes me aware of my own roots within my soul. Yeah? As Buddha discovered when he awoke, he said everything is driven and motivated by desires. So Scorpio is the archetype of desires. So is Pluto, so is the 8th house. And all of us, we have a dual desire nature. One desire, or one package of this dual desire nature, is what I call the separating desires. I like the image that the soul is part of the ocean, like a wave. Yeah? The ocean would be the divine or the true self. There's only one self. There's only one. Yeah? But when the ocean forms an ocean wave and the water is consciousness or emotion, that part of the wave would say, look, I have a different form. I'm a wave. Not I'm alive, I'm a wave. That would be a good DJ mix. I'm a wave. So I'm a wave. And because the drive of the wave is to basically deviate or like distance itself from the ocean, even though still being connected, the emotional nature is now on maintaining the form of the apparent wave, but not being the ocean. Similarly, you live in Canada, but in Germany we don't have speed limits on the freeways, on the autobahns. So if you sit in an Audi and you drive like around 260 kilometers an hour, right? Your focus is on the street, on the road, right? Because this is really freaking fast. You do not feel the seat heating on your butt, even though you're sitting on the seat. Can I get the image? Similarly, the dual nature in the soul is very much driven and focused on the desires that keep the soul maintaining a soulish form, a wave. Yeah? And in order to do that, the focus is now on the desires. And for the desires, I need a symbol that triggers the desire. So Scorpio is the archetype of symbols. What we do forget is that whatever the outer symbol is that triggers my desires is nothing but a reflection of something inside, like the inherent desires. Right? And now there comes a really interesting part. In my second house, Taurus, I feel my resources, but as stated before, I also feel what I do not have, / what I do need from others. Right? So, I look in the outer world of others, yeah, if there's anyone or any symbol that now symbolizes to me that when I would have that, if I would become one with that, then I would reach eternal peace. Because Scorpio's desire is to go to the deepest emotional point. Water. Fixed. But when water would stand still for too long, it starts to stink. So basically the wave, like inside of us, we have myriads of desires. All driven by the desire to not be with the ocean. Because we believe, as I said before, that we must have done something oh so wrong that the ocean kicked us out and we're now a separate wave, which is not true. It's an illusion, right? But we're so driven on that like high-speed drive as a wave that we now feeling a lack of we're not the ocean, I'm separate, I'm inferior, I'm not good enough. I'm now starting, or it starts now, to think that this symbol or that symbol outside of me, if I begin to merge with that symbol, that then I would have happiness, eternal happiness, that it would finally come home, right? So the wave now, let's say some would have sees the new BMW, yeah, and goes like, oh, if I would have that BMW, meaning in my Taurus second house, I see I have no BMW, right? But if I would get that W, I have to get out of my frog in the well kind of dynamic, and now I need to use all my emotional powers, my focus, laser beamish, emotionally speaking, not electronically speaking, to gather all my strength, square to Leo, my financial things, second house, my creativity, fifth house. Yeah? And now I start as the wave, meaning like the Ulrich, the wave Ulrich, or the little wave, Ulrich, because Ulrich is only the little wave on the big wave, that would be the ego, is now driven to get this beamer. So he saves money, maybe like talks with a dealer to get a deal, those kind of things, ask the parents, ask friends, sell something, and suddenly I have the possibility. But all these efforts, emotional efforts, not like practical efforts, which would be Virgo, do now make me roll like a wave, away from that what I was before, to that what I desire to become, i.e. a BMW owner. And that makes me roll over the ocean, and I go through a, first, osmosis. I osmose, like water, with that symbol or that energy of what I think I want to have or need to have for eternal happiness. So now I'm rolling, and by that I'm going through a metamorphosis. Meaning I'm changing completely, right? From the not owner of a BMW to when I suddenly merge with that thing, I become the owner. I become a BMW owner. So now my separate desire that was inherent in me but just triggered by the outer symbol, right, has now come to a completion. The sense of separation, not BMW owner, BMW comes together. That's how every external or separating desire works. I need to buy this house, I need to have this dress, I need to travel there, da-da-da-da-da-da. It's all separating desires. They keep the soul rolling over the ocean while forgetting the ocean. Make sense? And now comes the second desire. I said there's a dual desire nature within the soul. You sit in your freaking Beamer, maybe for a week, maybe for a month, but at one point you will have the feeling, that was not it. I'm not so satisfied as I hoped to be when I would be, after the metamorphosis, the BMW owner. And that little voice that says, didn't do it, is the other desire nature within the soul, the desire to merge back with its own source, to become ocean again. Make sense? So we only have two desires. We have the one that keep us away from the ocean, even though we're one with the ocean, and the other one to merge back with the ocean. And interestingly enough, the planetary body of Pluto is two bodies. It's a so-called binary planetary system. It's not like the Earth and the Moon, where the Moon spins around the Earth, but it is Pluto and Charon, C-H-A-R-O-N, Charon. And they spin around an invisible center. But Pluto is a little bigger, Charon is a little smaller. So they spin like this. That is a perfect symbolism for the dual nature. So the question is, in myself, what is my driving desires? Is it more the separating desires? I have to go to Disneyland. I'm so excited. Oh, it's so cool. You should go there too. Yeah, fine. But that clearly shows your desires are of separative nature. Meaning, within your soul, there's still so much drive. In the wave, there's so much drive. You know, like when you sit in the bathtub and you do waves, the force, the wave is just like, moving. But with every desire accomplished and fulfilled, with that feeling like, that wasn't it, the drive decreases slowly. Make sense? One desire less, one desire less, one desire less. So the wave loses its drive, its force, right? And automatically, at one point in the journey over the divine ocean of its own self, the wave has only one desire, primarily, dominantly within itself. And that's the one to unite back with the ocean. Which does not mean when that desire becomes dominant, when we have a shift in gravity, that from that moment on, the person or the soul does not have separating desires anymore. But they're not dominant anymore. They're in proportion less important. These are people that follow their desires knowing, or they are not believing when I have this desire fulfilled, I will be fulfilled. But they go done, done, done. They see those desires as obstacles in the way of the merging with its own self. The moment when it shifts from separating desires to the desire to come home, that's what I call natural spiritualization. So spiritualization has nothing to do with reading some esoteric books. Or as Yogananda said, if a donkey has a load of like holy scriptures and Bibles, does that make the donkey spiritual? Or would it not rather be more in alignment with nature without that burden? Quite true. In India, there's a saying where the wave speaks to the ocean and says like, oh, ocean, I would love to be you. And the ocean responds, calm down. Because our desires, those separating desires, keep a certain kind of like, I need to do this, I need to do that. Yeah. I mean, Virgo needs to be busy, but it goes all back to our motives and agendas. Yeah? Make sense? Of course we need like somewhere to sleep. Of course we need to eat. We need shoes and those kind of things. But am I attached to that or am I non-attached? Non-attachment would be Aquarius. And Scorpio makes a square to Aquarius. So basically, you can do all the things. But be aware that you should not get overly identified. Typical Scorpio, overly identified. That can go up to compulsion. It's my house, it's my car. Oh, my car, I have to polish it, da-da-da. That's compulsive, right? Overly identified. With a symbol, just a symbol. The metamorphosis that one goes through based on the inner desires is basically something that we know from the symbolism of the phoenix. It's a die and be reborn, right? Or, which is really interesting, the astronomical sign of Scorpio in the sky, the fixed star constellation, is quite overlapped by the sign of the snake. And in many, many cultures, ancient cultures, they didn't call the sign Scorpio, they called it the sign of the snake, which has much more symbolism than a stupid Scorpio, right? I mean, Scorpio, no symbolism. But the snake is very much like us human beings. We have to live on this planet if we want or not. We have to crawl through the dust, don't we? Right? We try to wind ourselves through the obstacles. We try to find any emotional security, right? And unpredictably, if we want or not, there's something within us that now gives us a conference call behind the bush. And we need to shed our skin. Meaning we need to let go of our emotional identification of inner or outer symbolism. The water on the deepest point, if it stands too long, it stinks. So water needs to flow. So it is the live and die dynamic, that you dive into something that serves you for a while, satisfyingly more or less, to then shed it off again. And like the snake behind the bush, if you ever seen like one when they shed off the skin, it is really edgy. It is like really, because it needs to let go what's once served with an emotional safety, and at the same time, the new skin is not there yet because the old is still hanging on the tail, getting rid of it. In that time, it cannot hunt. It's danger to be prey of like, an eagle or something like that. So it's really edgy. And when the old skin is shedded off, the new skin is like new shoes. You need a time to walk in, right? You get blisters. So basically, each of us, because we all have Scorpio somewhere, Pluto somewhere, and an 8th house, we go through intervals of shedding off our old skin, right? And in that time, we are extremely intense in our emotions. We have like a bulletproof flak jacket around us because we feel so vulnerable, right? We are in the fear of being so vulnerable that we could get hurt and rather push the others away. Or like the snake when it's shedding off the skin is not going to a party. You are forced to be in your own metamorphosis, letting go of the old. But because Scorpio being water and fixed and the opposite sign is Taurus, there's quite a resistance. There's a resistance. Let's say the Beamer, the owner, the Ulrich, who is now the Beamer owner, says, no, I saved money for 3 years and I cannot give it. So I'm starting to hold on to that, right? And not letting go. But the funny thing is, the more I hold on to what is bound to go, which ultimately is everything, right? The more the resistance will trigger an inner pressure that we call cataclysmic pressure. Like when the North American continent pushes against the Asian continent, at the Ring of Fire, we have two evolutionary forces that at one point will do earthquake. So Scorpio, Pluto, and the 8th house is also the archetype of evolution. And I must say, personally, where I'm standing today, I don't like the word evolution and what we associate with it, because I think it is a delusion. Because evolving means as if we like going away from the center, like from the center of the merry-go-round, the autos, to the heteros, like the merry-go-round. So the better word would be the re-volution. But the word revolution is usually associated with like political turmoil and those kind of things. So basically, Scorpio is the archetype of evolution. But in truth, it is the evolution of the wave that was so driven by desires and forces. And now living through these desires, that its force is like decreasing and it becomes automatically more and more the ocean. Make sense? So the evolution is nothing then to go back home. That's my understanding. of course, on the soul's journey through many incarnations, we are driven by desires, but there comes another kind of like a bummer. Because we live in duality, there's the law of karmic, or the karma law, meaning the cause and effect. Right? So let's say in a previous life, my girlfriend or my wife wants to get divorced, which was not allowed, but let's just pretend, and I'm holding on to her. I invested, I paid your father 3 camels, and you're now leaving me. No, no, no. So I'm starting the whole manipulation, Scorpio. Domination, Scorpio. Threats, Scorpio. Possessiveness, Scorpio. And if she runs away, eventually the stalking. The revenge, because you hurt me. And if you hurt me, I will hurt you too. And because I have x-rayed you before, I know where to hit you that it hurts. And I will send a poison arrow that will not hurt when it like penetrates you, but it will hurt, and so it can be like really deep and like violent. But what I wanted to say is like, we do react in our fear of rejection, which is Scorpio. We all have a fear of rejection because it brings you back to the deepest error belief that we were rejected by God, by the divine, which is not true. That would be like the wave that says like, oh, the ocean left me alone, right? So it's idiotic. Right? That's why in the Course in Miracles it said, we're all innocent, we were all confused. Okay? If you see everyone as confused, including yourself, you're quite at peace, right? So, but what I'm trying to say is like, because of our reaction to some things that are evolutionary, like an evolutionary necessity, like, you should give away the beamer, the girlfriend goes away, but you're holding on to that and you're doing all those like kind of dark, vindictive kind of like the whole range of psychological things. Psychology is clearly Scorpio, everything, like everything is Scorpio. I don't want to get into all the details, but because it's the soul, it's the kind of like, I want to go deep, but I'm afraid, and she hurt me, he hurt me, now I'm going to hurt you, I'm going to dominate you, because then you cannot hurt me, but then the other one, then I rely on you, but then you leave, and now I do the vindictive thing and burn down your house, which is not necessarily getting you the best scores on your karma card. So the soul's journey over the ocean, in the duality, is not only driven by desires, but also by karmic necessities. Yeah? Karma is nothing bad, it's just the cause, it's the law of cause and effect. Yeah? So that just said. So evolution, the form of evolution, or as I would like to say, revolution, there are 2 forms of evolution that are harmoniously. Meaning, like let's say you have the desire, latently within you, astrology could be interesting. Let's just start there. And when you zap through the channels, there's always something about astrology. So you get little hints. Ding, 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 bigger bell, bigger bell. And then you somehow come across that you see, this is Ulrich Boll. He symbolizes, I'm the symbol for you, that I represent something where you think when you merge with like that symbol or the knowledge of it, that afterwards you would be happy or home, right? So this is a natural evolution. Suddenly you have a day off, you can go to this class, you can you understand it, it brings you through metamorphosis, your whole attitude about life, or you learn things, you go, yeah, that's what I always thought. You're going through a metamorphosis, but in a harmonious way. That's one way. The other way is, harmonious way, latent potential starts to surface. Let's say you work in an office, you're kind of like, Virgo-ish, not satisfied. And whenever you're on the phone, you're just sketching. And you notice, the sketching is kind of good. And then you find like a DVD class of like painting. And you start, why not, And then a friend gives you for the birthday like a painting class. And suddenly you experience by joy, wow, painting is really something. So like a flower that goes through the cement, you start to change your life by latent suppressed potential starting to surface, which does have an effect on your existing life. Let's say you're married and you decide to make the living room your, do you say atelier? Like your creative atelier. En français, atelier. So suddenly you have like your canvas, your colors, your everything in the living room. Well, that might trigger some confrontation with your partner. Because Scorpio, as mentioned before when we did the frog in the well thing, Scorpio is also the archetype of confrontation. Yeah, the kind of like... So we have the harmonious evolution and the latent potential coming up. Then there are two ones that are not so pleasant. The one is already mentioned is the cataclysmic one. Meaning, let's say there's someone working at a bank, but he starts to have dreams of becoming like a surf teacher on Hawaii. And he goes, oh, no, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. No. So whenever he watches TV, it's Hawaii, it's surfing, you know. The neighbors goes like, I'm moving to Hawaii. The other neighbors say like, I'm doing surfing, it's really fun. So he gets all the symbols from the outside, but he's going like, no, I'm not going to listen to that new desire inside because I'm a well-established family man with the bank. No. So we have resistance, right? I mean, the symbolism is basically a form of confrontation that the person is now getting like confronted with something the inner soul would like to live through, but no, I'm not going to shed my skin. So the more the resistance is pushing up, the more the evolution pushes too, right? So there comes one day, and that's what a cataclysmic evolution is, within like 2 days, he loses his job because the bank is bankrupt. His wife packed a suitcase, left him a note, asshole, I leave you, right? And whatever. And the only way for him to make a living is by selling the house. And a friend of his moved to Hawaii and offers him a job as a surf teacher. So evolution always wins, so don't fight. Yeah? If you see that inside there's the desire, be it so absurd, follow it. Because you quicken your path, right? Those cataclysmic things can really happen. I went twice through that. Within 24 hours, I lost everything. And instead of feeling victimized afterwards, I felt liberated because I had to admit, oh my God, I had the little ding dong, I had the bigger ding dong, I had the bong bong. I would not, so go with it. The other, the fourth form of evolution, which is also one of the more unpleasant one, is called catatonia. You're going through an inner state of feeling completely lifeless, desireless. Nothing has meaning to you. Not in a Buddhistic way, yeah? But you have your wife, you have your children, you have your car, you have your job. You're just doing I do it robotically, but it's not doing anything. And you suffer because you have no perspective of what the future holds. So you're hanging in there. Catatonia in psychology is like, the kind of like emotional catatonia. In medicine, it is like when you're dead and the body gets stiff, right? So you're going through a while that can sometimes even go up to 1 or 2 years. Usually during a Pluto transit, where you are in this like absolute lifeless, robotic, the kid says, oh, daddy, hug me. You hug, but you feel nothing. You're dead. But at one point, then of course comes, the new desires. Scorpio, of course, is the archetype of death. Yeah? Because like a certain die and be reborn. So it's death, which does not mean that when you have a Pluto going over whatever, that you're going to die. Usually every human has like about three, maximum 4 death significators in the chart that might be triggered. But I mean, I'm doing evolutionary astrology. I died so many deaths in past life. The next one is not going to kill me. So relax. What actually happens with what the snake is doing when shedding the skin, or when we are going through our desires, we are basically eliminating everything that blocks us from being aware of that what we've always been, i.e. the ocean. Right? So at the end, when you start to go through the liberation process, the real liberation, you will see that it's just like, it's just a hideous joke. It's like as if you lay in bed and you have like a nightmare that a shark is eating you up, right? It's very real, but the moment you wake up, you feel the feather comforter, you feel everything is fine, right? So what they also do, their glances are very penetrating, right? because they look inside the other one. They want to see who's inside there. But most people feel either by that intensity, either falsely invited for sexual things. They misinterpret that as a sexual invitation, or they feel so scared of being X-rayed that something is being revealed which they do not want to be revealed. Most people do not want to look in their basement, nor into their shadow, nor even deeper, right? So the reaction that Scorpio very often experiences due to their intensity and their need to penetrate into X-ray is that they have either like a crowd of sexual admirers, so to speak, right? That pick up on that energy which is not meant to be sexual, because Scorpio is very, very well aware when to turn the sexual machine on and off. It's like an electromagnetic. But it's the intensity. But most people react to that with rejection. And that, interestingly enough, buys exactly into one of the deepest fear of Scorpio. The fear of rejection. The fear of abandonment. Right? So out of that fear, in order not to be rejected, they often test the other one by X-raying even deeper, which creates exactly that what they're most afraid of. And that very often leads, and Scorpio is the archetype of that, to emotional misinterpretations. Yeah? Like psycho crap, basically. Coming from those sudden upheavals of fear of, he, she could hurt me, right? So, and then that could lead to manipulations, or what they're also very good in when they're on this snake energy, yeah? Or when they're kind of like, ooh, I'm afraid I'm getting hurt on a very deep, profound level, and you might violate my trust. They work, or their energy works with withholding. It's like, it's expansive, and suddenly there's a and it's like encapsulated. And when you're close to these people, you feel like, God, what's wrong? I mean, it's this kind of like, ugh, yeah. And me with my moon in Virgo, I think like, did I do something wrong? Da 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 da. Yeah. So, but interesting enough, by them withholding, it's also a form of test. It's not only a protection, but it's also test. Because by withholding, they check, how do you react? Are you insecure? Are you getting submissive? Are you angry? Are you getting accusative? Are you getting possessive? Are you going to fuck you? I'm going to go somewhere. How's your reaction? And by that, they scan your inner psychology. Yeah? But the energy is really intense. Really, really intense. As stated before, they love to penetrate, not only with emotional, but of course, here comes my favorite example. Imagine you're invited at a nice dinner party, let's say Los Angeles, pool party, yada da, everyone is chic, da 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 da. And among these 150 guests, you feel that bzz to that person over there. Bzz, yeah? You do the flirt. Bzz, bzz, bzz. And suddenly all the others are not that important anymore. So Mrs. Miller does the hop chop chop and hop chop chop there. You just somehow escape and try to get closer to that magnetizing person who you now want to go deeper. So you step a little aside from the pool party, from where's everything lit. You go like a little bit to the little garden area where there's a little bit more shadow, a little bit darker. And then you start to go deeper. By eyes, Americans do the questionnaire. Yeah? Or we Europeans, we did. Now we're Americanized. We usually start with kissing and sex first, and if it was good, we can have a good chat. But different cultures, different habits. Anyway, so basically, like kissing, tongue kissing, or intercourse is basically a Scorpio act. So therefore, it is the archetype of sexuality, not with myself, that would be Taurus, but with another person, and therefore there is a penetration. But the motive, usually the deeper motivation for sexual intimacy and intercourse is not to have physical intercourse, but it is the longing to find on a deep level another person, yeah, to merge, to do osmosis with. It's the longing to merge with someone. But again, the merging ultimately takes place with the ocean, with your beloved one, with God, not with the lover, right? Of course, there are others that are also allowed to penetrate. Everyone who does surgery, The dentist, like everyone who goes like deeper inside of you, right, is Scorpio. Yeah? So all the surgeons, you know, the dentist where I was today and those kind of things. And on a more practical level, because Taurus is my resources, it's the second house of my ascendant, we could say Libra are the others. And the second house of Libra, if we count Libra 1 and the 8th house 2, is the money of others. So Scorpio 8th house has to do with loans, bank credits, inheritance, yeah? Deals, contracts, any form of contract. Because if you wanted to have a business partner for an entrepreneur, you go and say, okay, let's have a contract, a business contract, or a prenuptial, like from before marriage, any form of contract that binds you deeper to someone else, and where the consequences of violating it would be not pretty, basically, right? Yeah, I'm pretty done. That's Scorpio.
Your mind.
Remember times without time.